I started in 1968. I came down to do my internship with Francis Graham and Ambrose Vogel. And then I returned in 1970 and 71 and taught grade 2 and 3. After that, I had to resign because once you had your children or family, there was no maternity leave. So I resigned at that point, but came back doing relief work and part-time work until 1996, thereabouts. So, but in that time, I spent a lot of time involved in Mothers Club and Parents and Friends and the school council. I used to go in and do the Christian religious education program with other people during the week. We did the Centre Care of Family Life education program. And then a group of mums used to go in on Friday afternoon with Bonnie Stanley to help with the netball with grade 3 to 6. We'd take all the girls and the boys would go off onto the oval for football. And so Diane Krusker and Marlene Laurie and Marilyn Davis used to come in and we worked with those girls. And then in 1979, the girls won the primary netball for the region and we took them through to Launceston. It was such a big deal to take them through to play the premier of the Launceston division, which was Ravenswood School at the time. And they actually drew, and it was quite exhilarating almost to think that they could compete on an equal footing with the girls in town. And then from 2008 to 2024, oh no, I've missed a little bit out of there, didn't I? So I came back to do full-time classroom teaching. That's right, back from 1996 to 2007, and then when I retired in 2008, I came in as grandma help and the reading support volunteer program with 7/8, mentoring and still involved in the local chaplaincy committee. So it's been a long journey with the school, but it's always been very important. A couple of things. First, there was that I had that unique privilege of travelling with children from kindergarten right through to when they left school, because the relief work took me all over the school. So I got to know those children as we travelled through and then as adults in the community. So, but I think for me, the thing is that every child is unique, and I hope I had that, made them feel that way in the school, that they all had a unique position and a place in the world that they could achieve. Well, the first change was the school was only kinder to grade 9 when Dean was involved. And then, and of course the classrooms were smaller, the numbers were smaller. Then while about 1972, it expanded to K to 10, and that changed because that meant children who had to travel to St Mary's every day for their high school education now stayed at St Helens, and it enabled children from the outlying reaches like Pyengana to come to school here through to grade 10 rather than go away to boarding school or try and get down and travel to St Mary's. And then, of course, it's since changed to K to 12. That also impacted buildings and staffing, so that had a big impact on it. The second one was the inclusion that I thought had another huge impact on the school. And again, these programs were brought in with good intentions, but without the full support that the government should have had in place and the planning that was needed. But it did change the role of the school, and today there are so many TAs at the school that we never had back then. And then, of course, the greatest one was technology. And oh boy, was that, that was huge. And we had staff training after school to learn how to use the internet, etc., and the programs. And I was really blessed to have a young fellow by the name of Carl in my class. And Carl didn't need to spell. He had a photographic memory. He'd look at the word, he knew it. So look, say, cover, write, check, colour writing, total waste of time for Carl. So instead, I gave Carl a classroom list and he took the children one by one at spelling time. We had one computer down the back of the room, and he taught each child how to use Word, how to use the paint program. And so by the end of the year, the kids were quite proficient because of Carl, and it was no surprise that he was on the Dean's Honour list for his computer in, years later. So that was an amazing change. And today the kids have all got their own, iPads and things, but we didn't have that then. Yeah.
We didn't.
When I was at school, challenge then, well, trying to be yourself, which doesn't work, and I was lucky to have somebody to draw a bit of knowledge out of.
I had to think about this, but I really think that from birth to 5 years is so vital, and the most important thing is to be able to be there with parents. Some parents working with the children, developing the skills that make the child feel that full self-worth that then flows over into other areas, and the self-discipline that comes along with that as they're learning. But so many times the children come to school and they don't have that self-worth, and so a lot of time is spent building that up within the child, and I just think that's just such a valuable component to give them the right direction.
To go, yeah.
Well, I think the story of Carl was probably that, covers that one. That was one of the biggest challenges. With the inclusion, I found the children became involved, and so that helped me overcome that challenge. We had an aide for a little while, and parent help is absolutely invaluable when parents come in and work alongside the children. So that helped us in the classroom, but I only had one child that was included in the class, and the class just worked so wonderfully around any problems or disruptions we might have had at that point. And Eliza, she'd written this beautiful poem about how we'd included the child, and she won an award in Hobart because it was so touching, and she did that outside of school. It wasn't part of a school program, but it was just the way children felt that she was just involved in the school and the program, so it was really valuable.
Right.
When I first arrived, I was in the bottom classroom near the old music room, and it had an open fire and had a beautiful big mat, and we used to sit on that the mat of a morning. The children were all sitting there because that was our time to do the register, tick them off, and get the news. And so one of the most memorable for me was when Darren Bailey came along. It was his birthday and he'd received a record, and it was Riding Along on My Push Bike, Honey. And they were all sitting there on the mat, bouncing along, singing this song at the top of their voices. And it comes back to me many times. It was just such a fun time. The class was a large class. I had 40 plus children in that class the first year here. But I don't know, we managed, and we did lots of fun things. We had lots of little excursions around the town. We were allowed to take the children to the farm or to the wharf or up to the mill, so we walked a lot and did a lot of activities, but that particular time was quite good. And like I said, with Darren and Carl, and then there was Nathan, who we had a couple of years later in a grade 4-5, and we had this friendly bantering and lots of jokes because he barracked for a different football team than mine. And so, and I often laugh because you'd be watching the game and think, I wonder what Nathan would be thinking about this. And Eliza and a poem, and the artistic value of some children. Sometimes their learning is different, and I think that's what Dean was referring to. So, yes, children learn differently, and I think that's really valuable that we appreciate that. Yeah.
No canteen, the banana and apple in the school bag. and a couple other things. That is the lunchbox, yeah.
Right. So no canteen to buy
No.
lunch with.
Look, there were many colleagues through my journey because it was such a varied journey. But when I returned to full-time teaching, Karen Fiddler was absolutely amazing. Because my day relief work was short-term planning, but when you go back full-time, you've got that longer-term planning and lots more involvement in the school. And Karen was a great asset and helped me set that out and guide me through that initial start. But another young colleague, and that was another Karen Mountenay. Karen came back into the school with such a positive outlook on teaching, and at the time we were looking at the de Bono thinking hats and the multiple intelligences, and we were able to do some remarkable units and teach across the 3 to 6 area so that children could learn the way their learning style suited them. And it had a great impact, and I know that that particular year our NAPLAN results were higher than they had been in other years. So it did have an impact, but it takes a lot of work and you need to have the people committed to doing it. I left this with a huge question mark because unfortunately the direction of the school is so bound by government funding and by department policies, depending who's there. And as much as the people are doing the best they can, there aren't the resources and the number of staff that people need. The ratio isn't there to get the best results we can. So I really don't know what the future holds. And with IT and the artificial intelligences now that are coming in, that could change things, but I really don't know what the direction would be. That teaching a child is not just their responsibility, it's a team responsibility, it's a community and parent responsibility, and they need to build that relationship with parents. And I remember saying that if you're sending a report home at the end of the year, it shouldn't be a surprise to a parent because you should have been talking to that parent all the way through. And it's important that they make each child feel worthwhile, absolutely. I said it when I was doing the parent liaison work at school. I said to some of the grade 9, 10s at that time, you reach for the sun, but should you miss, you will still be up there among the stars. And never believe you have failed, because you can have a fresh start any time you choose. For this thing we call failure is not falling down, but staying down. Yeah. Oh, there are lots of things, and I couldn't come up with one specifically because children come in and on the spur of the moment there are lots of little joyful events that I just didn't sort of pull out. Yes.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Oh no, just the change. Like I was talking to the children in grade 2 a few weeks ago, and the kindergarten was always there, but there was a huge paddock between the kindergarten and the school. And the local football was over there, and the sports was held on the school oval. So there were huge changes in the buildings, and the community was so involved. Like when it was smaller, the community was quite involved back in that early time when I was at the school. Yes, it was amazing.
Yeah. Oh, you do run your hand along the sandstone hard as possible when you're about to get the cane, you see. And it's got all numb and you go in there smiling away.
We didn't hear that one, Dino.
It's a secret one, that one.
There's a few people this morning that have had the